I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and um, if other people trickle in, it's great. If not, there will always be the recording. So let's see, Justin, you're here. So let's look at your stuff first. Since and yeah, sorry, I haven't been because for people who submitted a little bit later, I don't have that much time to actually pour in the nuke. So I'm just gonna look at your video and kind of talk through what I think, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
And yeah, okay. Let me share my screen. Do, do, do. Cool, awesome. So I see that you match pretty closely to the paint over. I mean the slab count that I did earlier. So I see that the saturation here is a lot lower, and you did lift up some of the really dark over here. I have a few questions if you don't mind. So I see that over here, like here, there's this kind of orange, almost like atmospheric look that's lifting up the darks, like the gamma and stuff. Do you know what that is?
I think it's the fog. I was trying to push it further back and to push it like back in that back hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I can either turn it down or just kind of push it. Basically, I just think I want it in the all the way back hallway. So if you think it's
Mm-hmm.
too much right there, I think just pushing it back is probably a good idea.
Cool. Yeah, so I do. It is really interesting because right now I know this what my slab can look like because I didn't have a good control of how far the fog can go in the 2D. So right now, because the tree looks like a little bit cut out in this kind of almost foggy environment. So if we were able to push this back to this third hallway, so hopefully that will reduce that feeling of this is kind of like almost like comped in, because right
Hmm.
now it does stand out quite a bit, just because the discrepancy in like the atmospheric feeling. It gets better when we get to here because right now the contrast level between the tree and itself and the darks here are not as different as, let's say, here. So that's what would be my first thing. So also, is the color also coming from the fog? This
Yes, it
warmth
is.
and
Yeah.
okay, awesome. I think maybe for this indoor setting, it will be good if we can have it just like a neutral, maybe a little warm, like warm yellowish close to the color of the light, but very little. So usually
Okay.
the fog indoor don't have that much color because they don't go far enough to accumulate the kind of color we usually get when we look at the sky outdoor. That takes like a lot of particles in the air, like long distance to actually kind of absorb and give you that kind of color. And usually indoor scenario, it's really rare that we get that much fog unless it's like a fog machine center.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the first thing I noticed in the shot. And the second thing would be like we talked about last time, that this is a really tricky kind of environment to light with a tree in the middle because you want to focus on the tree, but the environment itself has so many um, very strong and shapes and outlines and also contrast. So I'm wondering if it's possible. Let's see if we can. You can see the mouse, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So like these kind of really dark edge in this environment, I wonder if it's possible for us to swap the material for something that's a little bit lighter. Maybe just lift up the albedo so it's not like a matte black frame, or we can also explore the looks. Let me see if I can find, let's see, cool. Here's some images I was looking at for like sunny hallways. So we can see that in these both kind of fairly bright hallways, this one actually has very similar setup as yours. They have a glossy floor, very deep shot, and also actually has some very dark element. But because they have a shiny specular on it, so we know this is the black, like the wood painted black. But as they go down, because the reflection it doesn't really stand out as much as what we currently have here, like these kind of
Hmm.
dark metal. So it helps with the environment and really help you focusing on looking at this character because he is the only one that has really dark darks in this shot. So I think if it's possible, it's worth exploring changing some of these material base color so we can really help pushing the focus into the middle. Because typically these kind of shot with this kind of one point perspective, we're telling the viewers to look in the middle. Like like this one's a little vague because I think there are two characters standing here. We don't really see it right now, but I think as the camera gets closer, we do see it. But she's still fairly close to the middle of the shot. So that will be another thing that I want to see if it's possible to also. I think this is actually good. Yeah, I see that you fix the focal point of the shot. So right now most of the things are in focus, so that's great. And yeah, also I think I think it will depend. So I'm assuming the time of day. This is like almost sunset or golden hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Because I am seeing in the reflection here, this is still there's a lot of cool contribute like this cool reflection over here that kind of I'm not sure if this is actually the HDMI is actually this also the same kind of similar matching to this kind of lighting. Do you know?
I think the HDRI does have a more like a blue sky at the top. It's not
Okay.
really a sunset HDRI.
Okay. Yeah, that it would be great if we can find something that's closer to sunset. So these kind of because this kind of tells me the reflecting tells me this is kind of middle of the day.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. But I think these are all fine. And one thing I'm kind of wondering if possible, because I just realized when looking at this today, these are little benches. Because I think last time they kind of get lost in the atmosphere and the saturation here. These are benches, so that means this is a human size. Like human probably would be like this tall over here, probably.
Hmm.
And I think because the camera is moving pretty fast, I lost a sense of scale.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to kind of help us bring out the scale of the overall environment a little bit. And let's see. Yeah, yeah. I think after you push the volumetric, I mean the fog here back a little bit, I'm not sure what's the best way to like if you want to keep this kind of special feeling that's help inciting the tree, maybe a little bit of God rays from the window where the sun coming in can help. That can also help bring the light source inside the room and also help the tree not being like um, so cutouty maybe, just a little volumetric from where the sun direction is. But that's usually like these kind of look are usually pretty heavily art directed. So it depends on what you like to have that kind of God ray feeling. But it could be tricky because if you're pushing the foreground back and also trying to squeeze the God ray back in, um, sometimes it will look it very quickly starting to look humped. So I'll leave that up to you to decide whether you want to add those kind of look or not. Um, okay, let's see. Yeah, I think I am kind of curious about the different type of saturation that's over like when the sunlight hits around, let's say like here, here in this wall, and here. They all seem like saturation is a little bit different on these areas, even though it should be the same light source. Do you have an idea why that might be?
On On the middle, I definitely desaturated the middle section, the
Mm-hmm.
midground, but on the foreground section, it should be the same because
It
there's
should be
no
the same.
like there's no tricks there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can check that though.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see like these discrepancy I'm seeing in the um where the sun is hitting. Like, hmm, okay, yeah. Also, yeah, because I'm trying to see what's the best way for us to reduce all these like um let me put this into nuke and let's look at the mm, luminance value of this. Because I'm trying to see what's the best way for us to reduce like all these kind of busy shapes that we're seeing. Yeah, because right now we still have a lot of these rectangles when looking at the black, like just black and white. There are a lot of shapes here, 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 here. So I'm thinking if possible, depending on how the scene was set up, if the sun is coming from this direction, that's almost like pretty much straight up from perpendicular from where the camera is, like 90-degree from where the camera is. I'm assuming this wall back there probably will be more of a shadow since whatever this structure, of course, it depends on how far away that wall is. If this structure is like blocking sound and light, hopefully, so this wall over here behind these windows hopefully would not be as bright. And I would say maybe if we can cheat anything that's on this side as well to make it a little darker. Or is this a sky over here? I can't tell.
No, it's actually the build. Yeah, there's a wall on each side, so it is a
Okay,
wall. It's just like the other side.
okay. I think maybe it would be helpful if there's any way that we can have the walls either not hit by the light as much or lower their base color. So maybe that can help us reduce the contrast of these strong shapes between the
Okay.
dark and the brights here. But I don't know the scene very well, so yeah, hopefully it's not doesn't create any kind of weird look in there. So that will help us to focus anything that's in the middle here, hopefully. And let's see, let's play through. Yeah, so that will also hopefully apply to this one. Is that also the window?
I think it's another window, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, then that could help too. Yeah. And since I know in Unreal we don't have as much control on how strong like light can hit a certain area. Um, because the light right now, when you get close to the tree, I think this is rolled off. I can say this is being rolled off, so it's not as bright. But this wall here and some of the bright spots here are still very bright. So that's kind of taking some of the attention away from the tree itself. And also, even when we wrote it off here, it looks like we're losing some of the details on the in the brights. They kind of look like evenly got wrote off or lifted. I can see there's some details behind it. I don't know what those are, but right now this window doesn't feel like a source of skylight to me. And we're trying to do two things. One is not making it super bright, but at the same time still feel like it's a reasonable source of light that um, you can probably, if you want to see, I mean, you can probably see behind this if this building, that this building will be overexposed. But overexposed will also have some kind of usually light wrap around these midground elements. so it's not as cutouty, hopefully. Um, yeah. Do you notice if this is actually the same wall that's behind these, or
I
is it
think it's like
different?
it's kind of like another section. So like there's that foreground section, and then there's like kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
top portion that's kind of up above. So it's kind of like a back wall. So
Mm-hmm.
it's further back, but I don't think it's the
Yeah.
same wall.
Yeah. Because what I'm referring to is something more like this. Like you can see that even though this is the outside is overexposed because we're exposed to the inside, you can still kind of see the detail of the outside. And there's some brights that I'm kind of missing here. I kind of see these, but it looks like almost really gammaed together, so losing a lot of the variation of what it was supposed to look like. So yeah, maybe that's something worth looking into. But that's yeah, that because right now, yeah, I think the best way for us is to just reduce large, bright, flat area so we can help looking at the tree a little bit more. Yeah, so these, if there's any way that we can bring some of the details back in the wall, so it's not just like blown out, flat, like white areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
How?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Almost like the foreground wall that's in the archway. Kind of how we can. It's bright, but there's still detail within the highlights
Yeah,
there.
this one, yeah, ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that will help us fix some of the biggest issue, which is the busy shape when we lower the contrast between these dark parts and the bright parts, and also having the bright have more the bright be more subtle and bring a little bit of detail back, and also the midground fog. Hopefully the exterior can go darker. Yeah, let's start with these and see how that get us, and we can keep exploring. Does that sound good?
Yep. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, hi Ruby. Good to see you here. All right, let's go back
Hello.
and hi. All right, Paul. Hi, Paul. Yeah, I see you
Ida.
quickly updated the stuff. So yeah, it's exciting. Super
Yes,
duper
I was
close.
fighting all the night to get in time.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, don't worry. If you can, don't force yourself. Don't have to you have to stay up late for this. Just do what you can, and I will be here. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I think this is looking super duper close, and I'm really glad that you added this little speck in here. That really helps. And so I think the notes I have today are pretty much just the same thing, but kind of just like I feel like you can go a little bit further on these notes. So on the
Mhm.
specular here, this really helps a lot. But I wish that you have a little bit more here as well.
Ah,
Just
okay.
kind of just kind of like have it all around them is because right now this is a really large space that we have like very little detail. And
Mhm.
this is working, so I'm hoping that maybe we can see a little bit more here as well.
Yeah.
And same thing for the contact shadow. I saw you added some in there. It would be great if we could have a little bit more. Something maybe closer to the value of these eyelids. Because I can see that these are probably, I'm assuming these are shadows. And like same thing with the mouth over here. So I'm assuming that this will probably cast similar uh, level of dark shadows on the head. So if that's possible, um, yeah, if not, if it's really difficult, let's talk about our options or maybe we just comp it. But I love the head texture. That really helps adding more detail into it.
Okay.
And yeah, and the last thing is also the same thing, just the same notes as last time. I see that you desaturated this, but I still kind of see that this one particular lamp is fairly saturated, and also the
Uh-huh.
hue is still slightly different from what you kind of have over with the backdrop itself. And we could probably see it better if you expose it up. We
Uh,
can see that like this is a more true red over here. Even this lamp right here has more like orangey red, but I can see that there's a light here that the hue is different from all the other hues in the shot. So that's what's standing out to me.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I
Awesome.
know that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, but I think yeah, this is super duper close. If you feel like doing it, yeah, it's great. If not, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'll come back. I'll circle back. Let me move on to something else. I want to be over with this, so it's up to you. But yeah,
I
I
know.
think these.
I'm fine. I like the to be like really kinky
Yeah,
with this
I,
detail.
yeah, yeah. I think that'll be all the notes I have. So yeah,
All right.
hopefully,
Thanks, Liz.
yeah. So let's see. Hopefully you're happy with it too. And if you feel like you're not happy with it, let's talk.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks, Linda.
of course. And then okay, I will go for Andre's work. So hi Andre, I see that you started with a new challenge. Super exciting. I really like this thing. Just over the model. I think it's a really cool little thing to like. Um, so I see that you also picked Moana as your reference. So I think my first thing that I notice when I look at your your first pass is we can probably start thinking about how we can balance the brightness of the brightest point of the shot because when we look at the Moana shot, if I turn on just black and white, we can see that sky over here is actually the brightest element in the shot, which will be the most cases if you're doing exterior shot. The sun in the sky usually was like I would say 99% of the time will be the brightest thing. And I think right now we are not kind of not seeing that in the shot, so it's kind of a little disconnect like of what the light source is from because usually the sky will be a lot brighter. So I think the sky itself looks really pretty. This is a great sky, but maybe there's anything we can do to brighten the middle section so you can feel like this is a brighter light source. That will probably really help. Um, one to feel like that is actually a more natural look. Two is that can help bring these character out because again, when we look at these in black and white, you can see that the characters are darker against the bright background. Versus, I think right now, there's a little bit difference between the mermaid, but for the boy, his key light and the fill light are kind of similar to the brightness of the sky right now. So if we bring that up, that's the thing that can really help separating the character from the background. So and then for the second thing I noticed is the contradiction of the white point is the black point, the darkest spot in the shot. So again, going back to your reference, we can see that when we expose up, we only have a very little dark places. That's like between like the neck and the hair. And this is not even probably a good way to look at this since this is all compressed into a JPEG whatsoever. But we can see that overall the hair has a lot of detail. It's catching a lot of light, so it's not overall kind of flat or matte looking. And only some very, very dark areas in the creases. That's very, very small in this frame. Versus I think right now we have quite a bit of dark area and they're also kind of flat looking in this shot. So I think the boy's hair is mostly kind of like matte right now. So it would be nice if we can also add similar kind of detail to, let's go back to this, like subtle details in the hair for the boy. Same thing with the mermaid that have some shaping that can maybe help tell where the light is coming from. Like we can see here, this is the light hitting their hair, so it's from light rolling into a darker area. Maybe you can have a similar approach for the mermaid's hair as well. Sorry, let me get a sip of water. All right, and then the next will be the shaping of the character. I don't know if you hear me saying this enough already, the shaping of the character. Um, so right now, let's go back to your reference again. We can see that this is again, a Disney film, so they have a very stylized look on how they want their characters shaped by the lights. So we can see that most of the shadows are really, really soft. You don't really see any sharp line that's typically casted from the sun, and things are very soft and rolled off, nice smooth transition, which maybe we can incorporate a little bit more over here so we don't have these kind of um, strong line between the lit side and the shadow side. So how we do that is using fill light, of course. So you can see that over here from looking at this image, I can see that they have at least 3 light sources, which is one will be from the key that's hitting them from here. And then another thing that is like this purple bluish skylight that is hitting them, the skin that's facing like upwards, that also adds nice detail and the hue of that tying them to the background together. And another light is a bounce light that we can see that's hitting them from under, filling in these spaces under the eyebrow, also the neck over here. Of course, they add a rim light on her so her hair can stand out a little bit more. It's not exactly a one-to-one case since, again, he's on a teeny tiny boat. The bounce light will be probably a different scenario since it's just a water surface now, and she's just floating in the air. I mean, the bounce light will still hit her, but it's not like, I forgot what boat they're on this shot. Is that still the rafter that they're sailing on? Yeah, I forgot. Anyways, so I think we can probably incorporate a similar idea of we have a key side that's the strong key lights hitting them that's help giving them some shaping, but also have maybe a purple bluish skylight that can bring out nice details, like maybe a little specular on some of the sides that where the key light won't hit. And I see you already have a fill light in there, but I think the fill light right now looks a little bit neutral. Like if I expose up like these kind of color, it seems to be more local to the character themselves. It doesn't look like it feels like it's contributed from the sky or anything. So maybe we can consider changing the hue and saturation of the fill light to help matching the environment a little better. So I can see that also here. This hat right here, that hat. I can see the boy has a warm key light, but the hat is not getting the same kind of warm light. Neither does the boat. So yeah, so that would be trying to match the hue and the saturation of your key lights and fill lights, or rack light or bounce light, whatever light you want to have in there, but try to make them feel like they're coming from the environment. And last but not least is I think for this kind of framing for the shot, we might want to consider the kind of scale that the current kind of depth of field is giving us. From looking at this framing, I'm going to say the lens is probably closer to somewhere around like 20 to, let's see, where is it? Where is my Google search? There it is. This one. It's like something that's probably something between here because we can see a nice horizon and the character says full body, and we can see quite a bit of the background here. And unfortunately, in your reference, I think they have a much tighter shot. They were zooming in all the way on the characters' faces. That's why the background had these nice blur, because the lens choices are different, the framing were different. However, this is a wider shot, so I feel like we wouldn't get as much of a shallow look in the depth of field. This will probably go a lot deeper and we won't get as much blur on the ocean in the background. So that's just something to consider. Or else the shot can probably, if you want to go for a more miniature look, that's perfectly fine too. So on the miniature note, I do want to say that one thing I'm noticing right now is the ripple and the wave scale seems a little bit, it makes them feel small. Because if I imagine this is ocean or any large body of water, so there's something about the scale of the wave that's making this whole pool of water look a lot smaller. But yeah, you can let me know if that's the choice, or if you want to keep it this way, just let me know. Yeah, I think these will be the notes I want to get to start with. Oh yeah, this one last thing I want to talk, and this is probably, I want to talk about this applying to everybody who's working on this particular lighting challenge right now. That would be how to deal with a shot that has two characters with different skin tone. From looking at the character design, I'm going to assume that the mermaid probably will be a more dark-skinned character than this boy right here. And it's sometimes very tricky to feel like they're balanced in the same lighting situation, and yet to feel like they have a different skin tone. So right now, I feel like her skin color feels a little bit lifted. I'm not sure if you modified the shader or anything. So like it kind of doesn't feel like she has dark skin anymore. And I would encourage that maybe we can keep her skin dark to stay true to the design and also make it more interesting, because that will be an interesting challenge. But also when lighting dark characters, usually we wouldn't rely on filling in as much. A lot of time we'll be relying on using specular to help shaping the character. But that's something down the line that we can start talking about. For now, I think we just start thinking about balancing the bright and detail to the dark, and trying to match the hue and saturation of the lights in the scene right now. So, but for everybody else, maybe something to consider how to approach lighting two characters with different skin tones. And last but not the least, Donnie. Hi, Donnie. It's my first time looking at your work, so hopefully one day I get to meet you. But I see that you did a lot of iteration on this um, workshop. I'm not sure exactly what the assignment notes workshop. I'm not sure if you had to come up your own model and try and do everything, because if that was, that's a lot of work. So definitely bravo to that. Sorry, let me drink a sip of water. So overall, I think you're getting really close to your reference after all these updates. So I just have a few more things if you want to match closely to this look. So first thing about 300 is the extremely stylized looks of film. The look is very dramatic, and a lot of time not, usually a little bit more untraditional. I also even say like unrealistic compared to most of the films, but that's why it's such an iconic film sometimes. So from what I'm seeing right now, from the reference to your image, the biggest difference I'm seeing is again the selling like the really nice bright source of the light. So if you look at the reference, we can see that this area where the sun is coming through in the sky is really, really bright. That really brings out the drama, because you have the contrast between extreme bright and extreme dark in these areas. So I would say maybe if possible, we can brighten these areas a little bit more. And one thing that I think a lot of time when I first started, I also forget that usually when things go brighter, the eyes will perceive it as less saturated. It's just how our eyes work. So if your HDR image, and when you start exposing down, you can actually start seeing the color inside the bright spot. But for our natural eyes, most of the time, the brighter that something looks usually means that it's less saturated. It will be closer to white. So maybe we can start brighten this area a little bit more and bring down saturation a little bit in the center bright area. That will really help selling how bright this is really like. This is like almost like a halo behind them. And the second part would be having maybe we can fine tune these nice light wrap that you have on these characters, as we have in here. You can see that they're against this bright light, so of course they have a very strong light wrap. I do want to point out that light wrap happens usually when a dark object is like darker object against a brighter background. So it usually only applies to when the background source is bright enough. Let me see if I can find a good example for that. There it is. Cool. So in this case, whatever this dude is doing here, let me see if I can find. Yeah, you can see. I think this is the same setup. These two images. You can see that in this case, when this guy is against the sky, the strongest light are coming from also the bright area of the sky. If the sky goes darker, the light wrap also goes darker. And while here, there's very little to no light wrap because this area is a lot darker that doesn't have that kind of bright light source contributing. So if you look here on the final composite image, you can see the same thing. The brightest light wrap is coming from here because the sky here is brighter. And then secondarily, somewhere around here because the sky here is also bright. And then down here, where it's against a darker mountain area, there's very little to no light wrap because the light wrap only comes from the bright area on the backdrop. So let's go back to your scene. So you can see that same thing with the reference that you gave, that the strongest light wrap happens somewhere around here. It's like these characters get washed out most here, and the ones down here falling down further away from the brighter area gets a lot less light wrap. So I would recommend maybe we can do a similar approach over here that have these characters that standing right from the brightest area have the strong light wrap, and have these characters that are not in those areas along with this cliff right here. Let's reduce the light wrap a little bit so it doesn't feel as unmotivated. And on the same note that we can still see that there's like strong dark core in these even when they're in the very bright highlight. I think right now if we let's see, if we look at these, the contrasts are not as high as these, like this dark against this bright, versus right now we are kind of in a very similar gray for these characters. So I think we can probably reduce the light wrap on all of these and reduce them even more over here. And the same thing will be applied to these the Spartans, if I remember correctly, the Spartan armies. Yeah, we also are getting quite a bit of light wrap from on them right now. But when we look at the reference, you can see that they don't get nearly as much as the enemies over here. So since this is the story you're trying to match to, I think we can possibly reduce the light wrap on these as well. And I think that will be it for this version. Yeah, I think as soon as you start lowering the light wrap and bring out the silhouette of these more, it will feel a lot more dramatic and really help the story element of your shot. And let's see, is that it for today? Yeah, I think that is all the submission I saw since Monday. Does anybody have any question? No? Good? Good? Am I muted?
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm good
All right.
too.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining me. And yeah, just keep posting on the channel. And or if you have any questions, just let me know. Yeah. So if there's nothing, I'll probably wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye.